Okay, I just had an equipment malfunction, sorry to say. But what I did was okay, I'll do this all again, all of it. I just got back from a trip to the United States. I was in Washington State for 5 or 6 days, and while I was down there, I was at a music festival. And when I'm at a music festival, I just have whiskey to drink, not to taste and to savor, just to drink. And of course, on the ferry on my way down there, I picked up a bottle of Black Velvet right here. It's a liter bottle. It cost me $11.95 at the duty free on the ferry. I happen to have a little bit left. Now, what was in this flask before what's in it now was the same thing. So I'm pretty sure there was no contamination, and I'm also pretty sure that I empty the flask completely when I finish it and hang it upside down to dry. And I'm gonna pour a dram again of the American bottled Black Velvet. It's from, I think it was Canandaigua, New York, where they bottle it. And as far as we know, it's distilled by the Black Velvet Distilling Company, Lethbridge, Alberta. This is the Canadian version, the Canadian bottled version. It says the same stuff on the back, except it says it in French also. And this is a 375 ml bottle for which I paid just last night. 10-cent deposit for the bottle. $13.09 for the $12.99 for the whiskey. 10 cents for the bottle, so $13.09. 65 cents goods and services tax. $1.30 liquor tax for the total out the door price of $15.04. Yeah, and that's the Canadian bottling from Lethbridge, Alberta. That's where my ex lives right now. So now that I've re-poured these, I'm going to savor, nose, and smell again. There's the American bottling and the Canadian bottling of the same juice. Right away, I'm getting corn husks. Smells like corn husks. And this is the Canadian bottling. I'm doing this in the spirit of Ron Theriot, he does these side-by-side comparisons of whiskeys. And I thought it would be interesting to do a side-by-side comparison of the American Black Velvet bottling and the Canadian Black Velvet bottling, because to me they don't taste or smell the same. It says Black Velvet on it, but this one here is blended blended Canadian whiskey, Black Velvet Distilling Company, Lethbridge, Alberta. The American one is imported from Canada, bottled in New York State somewhere, and it says whiskey with natural flavors. Now, what are the natural flavors? I don't know. Okay. Some caramel, vanilla, corn husks, some sweetness. A little bit of that rye bread. Rye bread and corn husks. And vanilla. The American bottling. Yeah. Marshmallows. 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 Sweetness. Sugar. Marshmallows. To be fair, there is some rye. But it's sweeter smelling. I'm getting icing sugar. And candy. Butterscotch a little bit. It's not identical. Here with the Canadian once again. Vanilla. Caramel. There's a bit of a winey note to it as well. Like sherry. It's pretty faint, but I always get it with the Canadian black velvet. Whoop. Enthusiastic Anaconda. Spilt some on my hand. Well, let's taste it. The second sip is the important one. I'm still getting a little bit of that sherry note, but it's pretty faint. Most of it is caramel, vanilla, toffee, corn sweetness. There is corn sweetness, but there is vanilla and toffee. And that sherry note. It is very smooth. It goes down very easily. I'm getting notifications. I'm going to have to check them out. Okay. The American on the nose. Along with the corn sweetness, there's a hint of brown sugar here, which I don't get on the Canadian version. I don't get as much caramel or toffee or that sherry note or vanilla as I do with the Canadian bottling. I get corn sweetness, mostly, and that brown sugar note. This is, after all, Canadian whiskey with natural flavors, which the other one is just blended Canadian whiskey. But they're allowed to have up to 9.9%. Canadian whiskey has that exception. They're allowed to have 9.9% of something else. It can be sherry, it can be rum, it can be whatever. Not what could be what the natural flavors is alluding to. I'm guessing that this is imported Canadian whiskey, but then they add the flavors to it in the United States and bottle it. And the Canadian one is naturally, these are not the same whiskey. They are not identical. Here I'm getting a grassy corn husks, where on the American bottling, I don't get corn husks at all. I just get sweetness and brown sugar. Let's taste the American version. There's our first sip. Icing sugar. A little bit of rye. Sugar. Sweetness. It's a lot sweeter than the Canadian bottling. And I'm getting fewer flavors. I'm just getting sweetness. To be fair, there is some of that corn husk and some of that grassiness, but it's covered over with the brown sugar note. Not getting any of that sherry note that I was getting in the Canadian bottling. Although the vanilla and caramel are there, I don't detect them so much in the American version. It's just, there's more of a brown sugar and more of a sweetness to the American one. And although they both have a little bit of bitterness towards the finish, the American has more sweetness throughout. Especially on the finish. Let's go for the finish on the Canadian once again. Corn husks, more husks, less sweetness. Although there's a hint of bitterness on the finish here, there's a bit of a sherry fruity note, like medium fruits, plums, raisins, that kind of thing, which I'm getting on the finish. And yes, there's also a hint of bitterness on the end, but there's a little bit more complexity here. I nose it again. Caramel vanilla. corn husk, grassiness, vanilla, caramel, a little bit of a fruity note, cherries or grapes or something, and then just a hint of bitterness on the end. Back to the American for one last final go. Sweetness. There's that brown sugar note again. Strong brown sugar that I don't get on the Canadian. Corn sweetness, but no corn husks, or not so much corn husks. More sweetness, just plain sugar, sweetness, brown sugar. I was right. These two are not the same. They are similar, but not exactly the same. There's that brown sugar again. And rather than just a little hint of bitterness on the finish, this is quite bitter on the finish. Well, I'm satisfied that they're not the same exactly. And you could do it yourself. You could get yourself some black velvet in Canada, and you could get some black velvet in the United States, and you could try the two side by side. You could try the two side by side blind, and I'm pretty sure that you will conclude, as I have, that they are not exactly the same whiskey. I'll drink to your very good health. Cheers.
Food Quig.
Food Quig.
Food Quig.
Food Quig.
Food Quig.
Yeah.